Okay, let's count down the top 10 prohibited areas in Europe no human can enter. At number 10, we have the Lascaux Cave located in France. If you've ever heard of the Lascaux Cave, you know that it is famous not for its natural elements, but the man-made ancient artwork that covers the wall of the dim underground gallery. The Lascaux Cave is completely closed to anyone who wants to go inside, but was once a bustling tourist destination. So what changed? Well, it starts with the paintings on the cave walls that were created about 17,000 years ago. So the paint is made of minerals that provide shades of red, yellow, black, violet, and brown, but this paint is not immune to carbon dioxide, and so after World War II, when the cave was discovered, 1,500 people would visit per day, and some would almost faint from the lack of oxygen caused by the crowds. The sweat and the breathing of all these people started to affect the quality of the paintings that were thousands of years old, and so the caves were permanently sealed off in 1963. So what's the point of having all this cool stuff on Earth if you can't look at it? Well, actually we can. The French government invested $64 million in a replica Lascaux cave for people to experience without damaging valuable elements of history. Next, at number 9 is Surtsey Island, that is located in Iceland. So Iceland itself as a country is located on a volcano, and being there you really wonder if you're going to be swallowed by a geyser or attacked by a river of lava. To be honest, it was one of my favorite places in Europe to visit though. While I was there, I was surprised to see barely any trees, and that's because of volcanic land. Like many Icelandic locations, Surtsey Island is home to an active volcano that experienced some scary eruptions up until 1967, but it has been dormant since, though we don't really know when she'll wake up again. Due to erosion, the island has also been shrinking. Since it stopped erupting in the 60s, it's seen more than a 50% reduction in size, but in 2008 it was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which means it will always be legally protected to ensure humans don't make their way over there for nature preservation and of course safety reasons. Moving on to number 8 with the Doomsday Vault located in Norway. So Doomsday is actually more of a nickname because the desolate facility is actually called the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. So let's say something terrible happens like a nuclear war or a natural disaster that totally wipes out a certain kind of crop. Well, that's where the Seed Vault comes in. In 2008, the vault contained roughly 300,000 seed samples. More recently in 2021, the vault contained over 1 million. The storage facility was purposely built on an isolated Arctic island called Spitsbergen so that the public would have a hard time getting to it, of course. If you tried to get in and take some seeds for yourself, you'd find it hard to breathe actually. The oxygen is so low, it's not designed for people, and the temperature is also pretty cold at -18 degrees Celsius. It's very rare for outside organizations who have seeds in storage to ever take them out. So yes, people are regularly around the area of the seed vault, but going in to take a sample is impossible. At number 7, we have the Pravčická Brana found in the Czech Republic. In Czech, Brana basically means gate, which is kind of what the Pravčická looks like, but more like a gateway to heaven because the bridge is actually made with rock and was formed entirely on its own, no people involved. The natural wonder is known as the largest sandstone arch in Europe, and of course, sandstone, like many rocks, is prone to some pretty serious erosion. Because of this, the government decided to close the arch to the public in 1982 after centuries of people enjoying the views and adventure of the Pravčická Brana. Despite this, hundreds of thousands of people still go to the area surrounding the Brana just to see it in person. And scientists are actually baffled as to how it was able to even stay standing this long. So there could be a day the entire thing just collapses. Changes in temperature have caused the stone to expand and contract as well, and the structure is considered way too thin to support its own weight, but it doesn't care what scientists say and stays up anyway. At Number 6 is the Vatican Apostolic Archives of the Vatican City. Yes, Vatican City is a bustling location, a religious wonder of a country within the city of Rome, but there is a place you can never get to. The Vatican Archives are home to some of the oldest and most fragile texts in the world, and these books will be protected for as long as they possibly can due to their cultural significance to the Vatican. Something interesting is that the Vatican Apostolic Archives used to be called the Vatican Secret Archives until in October of 2019, Pope Francis issued a letter to the Vatican for the name to be changed. And we can imagine this is because they are becoming less and less of a secret. People are just fascinated by the things that might be found in the iconic collection. The ancient archives began in the 1st century of Christianity, so the stuff in there is considered priceless. Throughout history, the archives went through transports, and some of it has even disappeared over time, which is why in 1612, Pope Paul V ordered all of the material to be gathered in one location. So at one point, some of the archives were kind of scattered in multiple different locations. Today, Pope Paul's method, of course, is still used to keep the archives as secure as possible. And at number 5, we've got Pavia, Italy. Pavia refers to a tiny little island that sits in between 2 Italian tourist destination cities, Venice and Lido. The island was made off limits by the Italian government, and it's not really clear why. Some people say it's because the island used to be home to a mental institution where patients were subject to torturous forms of therapy. Others believe because of its history, the island is haunted. The island was also once a quarantine station during the height of the bubonic plague, which, if you are familiar with, you know this happened often all around Europe. Many islands and kind of deserted areas of land became dumping grounds for the sick or deceased, and Pavia was one of those islands. In fact, if you were sick and were brought there, you had a 1 in 30 chance of making it back alive. If you have a boat in the Venetian lagoon and try to visit the island today, you might risk the consequences of committing a crime. At the end of the day, it seems Pavia is kind of the embarrassment of Italian healthcare and history, so they are trying desperately to keep it away from as many tourists as possible. With number 4, we have Metro 2 in Russia. Metro 2 is a alleged secret underground transit system that is so restricted that most of the world isn't even sure it exists, like some kind of urban legend. But I think it does, based on the fact that there is lots of information backing it up. So if there's supposedly no one down there, who was allowed to be there before? An explorer of Moscow's underground claims the subterranean tunnel network used to be home to KGB leaders and was established by Joseph Stalin himself. Stalin was a notorious political leader and was known for doing some crazy things to people he didn't like. What makes me think there's a chance it exists is that the Moscow Metro Administration has never denied the existence of a second secret metro tunnel. In 1991, the United States government did some digging into the claims and found that there is an underground network for leaders to be able to move around undetected. Some people even believe there is an entire abandoned city connected to the alleged Metro 2, but until the Russian government decides to let us in on its secrets, we will never know if the Metro 2 really exists. There are just so many reports from insiders, like former staff and even former Russian presidents have discussed it. It's just gotta be there. Next, at number 3 is the UN buffer zone located in Cyprus. The United Nations buffer zone, or Green Line in Cyprus, is 180 kilometers long and 7 kilometers to just 3 meters wide. The land divides the Greek and Turkish Cypriot states that were once in battle. The land represents a ceasefire that ended the combat, but the land is now abandoned and you need special permission to access it, which is nearly impossible to attain. The ceasefire happened back in 1974, and when the tension between the two sides was still present, the Green Line was very heavily supervised by guards to ensure no further combat happened, and even if you just tried to approach the zone, you'd be met by army troops. The area was even home to a bustling airport at one point that had to be permanently shut down and abandoned due to riots that would occur there. The town essentially went from a busy place of rival political and cultural identities to spooky ghost town that you should definitely stay away from. Now, number 2 is Pluto's Gate, located in Turkey. Pluto's Gate is a hole in the ground surrounded by a stone arch frame, but this is no ordinary hole in the ground. Pluto's Gate is deadly. The hole releases toxic volcanic carbon dioxide, and birds that actually fly too close to it immediately suffocate and die. This is why, since the ancient Romans, the location has been nicknamed the Gate to Hell. The mist surrounding the hole is most deadly at dawn, when temperature changes affect the CO2 concentration. If you get too close, you could be gone within a minute at this time, so please don't try and visit. The monument wasn't actually discovered by archaeologists until 2011, and what they found was startling. They said that ancient priests used to sacrifice animals in the hole and would study it, trying to understand when the gases were the strongest. Some ancient Romans would even drop birds in the hole just to see if they would die, because the event was a true hellish spectacle for them. The gate was a form of entertainment for the ancient people, who would gather in large audiences to watch a sort of magic show of people sacrificing animals to the devil. Today we know they were just suffocating the poor creatures. And finally, at number 1 is Chernobyl, Ukraine. You will never ever be able to visit Chernobyl thanks to one faulty operation that led to disaster in 1986 that many locals still feel the effects of today. So back then, Chernobyl was home to a nuclear plant. The thing about this facility was that the personnel were not exactly trained properly. I mean, it was the 80s, so safety wasn't really a priority in any line of work. But along with that, a nuclear reactor that was being used wasn't functioning properly. This led to an explosion that immediately killed 2 plant workers, and due to the radiation that was no longer contained, dozens of other workers died from complications. 5,000 people in surrounding towns contracted thyroid cancer, and 15 of those people also died as a result. Soon after, 350,000 people were evacuated from the area. Experts say that Chernobyl will have traces of dangerous radioactivity for another 20,000 years.